I paid off my family's debts. They paid me back by selling my house while I was deployed. Original post. Expanded. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy writing one of these stories, but here I am, sitting in a rental I didn't plan on living in, surrounded by boxes that don't belong to me, because the people I called family decided that everything I built was theirs to dismantle. I'm 34M. Active duty Army. I've spent the better part of my adult life either on a base, in training, or deployed overseas. I come from a small blue-collar town in Pennsylvania, the kind of place where everyone knows your last name and your family's reputation follows you around like a ghost. My dad walked out on us when I was 10. No explanation. Just didn't come home one day. My mom never really recovered. She worked 2 jobs and still came home crying sometimes. I did what I could. I took on the man of the house role way too early. I started working at 14, odd jobs mostly. Gave most of the money to Mom. My younger sister Julie, now 31F, was always the emotional one. Big dreams, bigger disasters. And Mason, 28M, the youngest, well, he was always just kind of there. A goofball, always in trouble but never taking anything seriously. When I enlisted, it was partially to get out and partially to provide. I sent money home every month, whether they asked or not. Paid Julie's tuition when she enrolled in community college, which she dropped out of after a year. Helped cover Mason's bail when he got arrested for shoplifting twice. And even sent cash when my mom's car broke down and she couldn't afford repairs. I never questioned it. I was family. That's what you do, right? Fast forward to 2020. I finally had enough savings to buy a house. It wasn't a mansion or anything. Just a 3-bedroom with a decent yard. About 30 minutes from where I grew up. But it was mine. For the first time in my life, I had something I could call my own. I renovated it on my short leave breaks. Painted the walls myself. Refinished the floors. I even put in a new porch swing for my mom, because she always used to talk about having one when we were kids. When I got orders for a year-long deployment in 2023, I made what I thought was the responsible decision. I let my mom stay in the house rent-free while I was gone. She'd lost her job during COVID and was living with Julie in a cramped apartment. I figured this way she'd be comfortable and the house would be occupied. I gave Julie limited power of attorney, specifically for handling utilities, taxes, and emergencies. I had a lawyer draft it. I trusted her stupidly. She cried when I signed the papers, saying she was honored that I trusted her that much. I left for my deployment believing everything was secure. Every bill was on autopay, property taxes prepaid, locks changed, and all important documents stored away. I even gave Julie a folder labeled for emergencies only that had my deed, insurance info, and a duplicate key. I should have known something was wrong when communication started to taper off. First, it was missed FaceTimes, then texts left on read. They said it was because of bad service or life stuff, and I bought it. I was thousands of miles away in the Middle East doing 12-hour shifts, running on caffeine and adrenaline. I didn't have time to question things. Then came my return. I landed back in the States 2 months early due to a reassignment. I didn't tell anyone. I wanted to surprise them. I had this fantasy of pulling up to my house, seeing Mom on the porch swing, hugging her, then surprising Julie and Mason with souvenirs and some good whiskey. Instead, I pulled up to a driveway filled with unfamiliar cars. The siding on the house had changed. My American flag was gone. The porch swing was missing. There was a dog in the yard. I never owned a dog. A man I didn't recognize opened the door. Mid-40s, slightly balding, wearing an old hoodie that looked exactly like mine from basic training. I told him I owned the house. He looked confused for a second, then said, "Oh, you're the brother?" "Yeah. They mentioned you." I don't remember driving away. I do remember sitting in a diner parking lot with my hands shaking so badly I couldn't dial my lawyer's number. I went to the county records office that afternoon. My name was no longer on the deed. It had been transferred 6 months ago. Julie had used the power of attorney, my trust, to sign off on a private sale. The kicker? She witness-forged my signature on other documents to finalize the deal. The buyer, turns out he was a friend of her new husband, bought it under market value, likely as a favor. My mom had even signed as a witness, knowing full well what was happening. They sold my house while I was overseas serving the country and never even had the decency to tell me. When I confronted them, it was like I was interrupting their brunch. Julie cried and said she was sorry I found out this way. Found this way. She claimed she needed the money because she was getting married and her fiancé couldn't afford a real wedding without help. Her words. She actually said that to my face. Mom looked tired and just said, "It was for the best. You're always gone. You weren't using the house." Mason just shrugged and said, "You always acted like you were better than us. Maybe this evens the playing field." I wish I was making this up. They used my money, my trust, and my absence to rob me blind. I've talked to a lawyer. What they did is illegal, criminal even, but the process will be long. The buyer is legally protected because he supposedly had no knowledge of the fraud, and the courts will have to decide if Julie abused the POA beyond what it allowed, which she absolutely did. I could press charges. I could sue. But doing that would mean dragging my family, my mother, my sister, into court and destroying what little connection is left. Yet they destroyed something in me already. I don't know what to do. I don't even know who I am right now. I spent my whole life thinking I was building something for my family. But apparently, the moment I stepped away, they decided to cash out. Would you press charges? Would you walk away? I honestly don't know how to live with this. Update 1, 2 weeks later, expanded. Hi Reddit. I want to say thank you for the overwhelming response. I didn't expect this post to get much attention. I honestly just needed to scream into the void. But what I got was thousands of people telling me I'm not crazy, that my pain is valid, and that what my family did was beyond betrayal, it was criminal. And that meant more than I can say. I've had some time to process everything. It hasn't been easy. There have been days where I didn't get out of bed, just sat staring at the walls of this temporary rental I had to scramble to find. Days where I questioned if I was overreacting, if maybe I really wasn't using the house, if maybe Julie didn't mean to hurt me. But then I'd go through the documents again, read the sale agreement, look at my forged signature, see my mother's name on the witness line, and the rage would come back. Let me tell you what's happened since. First, I retained a lawyer, a damn good one. A friend from my unit referred me to a former JAG officer who now specializes in property fraud and estate manipulation. We spent 4 hours going over everything. I brought every document I had. The original deed, the POA papers, copies of text messages, even photos of the house from before and after. She was stunned. Her exact words? "This is one of the most egregious abuses of trust I've ever seen. Your sister committed felony-level fraud. Your mother was complicit, and your brother benefited financially. This isn't a gray area. This is theft." Turns out, the power of attorney I signed gave Julie limited authority to manage routine financial and legal tasks on my behalf, temporarily. Nowhere did it say she could sell property. My lawyer was even more appalled when I showed her the messages from Julie where she admitted it wasn't a big deal. So, we filed a civil lawsuit for fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, conversion of property, and unjust enrichment. But it gets deeper. We also submitted a criminal complaint with the local district attorney's office. The DA's office contacted me this week. They're opening a formal investigation. Julie could be facing charges for forgery, fraudulent conveyance, and abuse of power of attorney, among others. Depending on the evidence and the prosecutor's appetite, she could be looking at prison time. Now, before you say I'm being too harsh, believe me, I've wrestled with this. I didn't want to be that guy. I didn't want to be the soldier who comes home and throws his family in jail. But as my lawyer asked me, if someone who wasn't related to you did this, if it were a neighbor or coworker, would you hesitate? No, of course I wouldn't. So why should DNA protect people who weaponized my absence? After filing the suit, I did something else. Something harder. I blocked all of them. I blocked my mom. I blocked Julie. I blocked Mason. I shut down every line of communication. No texts. No calls. No more late-night guilt trips or just talk to us voicemails. I created a new email. I even changed the emergency contact on all my military forms. It hurt, but it felt necessary. That boundary, It gave me something I hadn't felt since landing stateside. Control. But of course, they didn't give up quietly. About 4 days after the lawsuit was filed, my mom left a voicemail. She was crying, asking me to just come talk to us like a family. She said Julie was pregnant. Yep, the cherry on top, and stressed out, and this lawsuit could ruin her life. That Julie didn't mean it, and that family doesn't take family to court. But the part that broke me? She said, "You've always had so much." She just wanted a little bit for her future. Like I owed it. Like being responsible means I'm required to pay for everyone else's happiness. Like the only reason I've been successful is so they could consume it. Then came Mason. He didn't even pretend to be sorry. He DM'd me on Instagram, because he's blocked everywhere else, and wrote, "You're being AF King Drama Queen. We all sacrificed while you were playing war hero. Julie just wanted a future. You'll be fine. You always are. Grow up." I didn't respond, but I won't lie, it stung. Not because he said it, but because he meant it. That's when it hit me. They never saw me as family. They saw me as an investment, a resource, a wallet, a backup plan. And when I stopped giving, they cashed me out. But you know what? I'm not broken. Not anymore. I've been staying at a modest apartment near my base. It's not much, but it's clean, quiet. I've started going to therapy. Military services covered the first few sessions, and honestly, I needed it more than I realized. I'm sleeping better. I started painting again. Something I hadn't done since I was 18. I even signed up for a weekend motorcycle safety course. Something I've wanted to do for years, but always put off because of family emergencies or guilt trips. I'm beginning to rebuild, not just my life, but my sense of self. There's still a long road ahead. The legal battle is just beginning, and I know the emotional scars will linger. But every day I don't hear their voices is a step closer to peace. Every day I don't send money or explain myself or justify my existence is a little bit of freedom. To everyone who said, "You owe them nothing," thank you. To those who said, "Burn it down," don't worry. The match is lit. More updates will come. And next time, I won't be the one blindsided. Update 2, 1 month later expanded. Hey Reddit, it's been a hell of a month. I honestly thought things couldn't spiral further. I thought I had already seen the worst of the betrayal. But the universe, or maybe karma, had more truth bombs waiting for me. Let's just say, I finally understand just how long I've been lied to. And not just about the house. Small Blue Diamond, the legal situation, getting serious. The civil suit is in full swing now. My attorney served Julie personally at her new apartment, which, might I add, is suspiciously fancy for someone who claimed she had no other options but to sell my house. She tried to avoid service for a few days, claimed she was too stressed to talk. But eventually, her husband answered the door, and my lawyer's assistant handed the papers to him. Julie's lawyer, yes, she lawyering up now, some cousin of her new husband, I believe, sent over a ridiculously weak counter-argument. They're trying to argue that I abandoned the property, and that Julie believed she was acting in the family's best interest. They even cited some obscure precedent about emergency property management. My lawyer laughed out loud when she read it. The whole thing is grasping at straws, built on emotion and zero legal ground. In fact, we're countering with evidence of financial manipulation and premeditated fraud, screenshots of texts, bank withdrawals tied to my name, and emails where Julie discusses liquidating the house before I even deployed. We also pulled the sale records. Guess how much they sold my house for? $122,000. Market value? $228,000. That's over $100,000 in lost value intentionally. They knew it was worth more, but they sold it to Julie's husband's friend under market so he could flip it. It wasn't about survival. It was a con, and they thought I'd never find out. Small Blue Diamond mom reaches out, and I finally snap. 2 weeks ago, I got an email from my mom. The subject line was, "Family matters more than pride." She went full martyr mode in it. Said things like, "You've always been distant, even as a kid. Julie has always looked up to you, even when you ignored her. Mason just wanted to feel like you're equal. We didn't think you'd ever settle down anyway. Then she said this. Maybe this was God's way of balancing things. You've had so much. Julie's just trying to have a family now. Maybe you should learn to forgive before it's too late. Too late? For what? So I can walk her down the aisle in a fraud trial? I wrote back a single sentence. Tell Julie I'll see her in court. And tell Mason to stay off my lawn if he values his kneecaps. I know, petty. But I was done. Small blue diamond, the baby bombshell. It gets darker. Remember when I mentioned Julie's pregnancy? Well, sit down. A few days ago, Julie's ex-boyfriend, Eric, reached out to me on Facebook. We hadn't spoken in years. He was the guy she dated for most of her 20s. Kind of a screw-up, but decent enough. We grabbed beers a couple times back then. Always seemed a little scared of Julie, to be honest. He messages me and says, "Hey man, not sure if you care, but I think Julie's lying about that baby being her husband's. We were still sleeping together up until December. She told me she wasn't seeing anyone else. I didn't even know she got married until I saw it on Facebook. I stared at the screen for 10 minutes. That timeline? December? That's 4 months after the house was sold. Which means she was cheating on her now husband during the same period she was orchestrating the sale of my house. So I send it all screenshots, messages to my lawyer. Why? Because if that baby isn't her husband's, and this whole marriage was built on lies, just like the house sale, her credibility as a witness and her claims of family emergency crumble even further. Also, her new husband? Turns out he might have co-signed documents related to the house deal. If he knew the sale was fraudulent, he's going down too. Small blue diamond, one last punch. Discovering the family ledger. And just when I thought I had uncovered all their schemes, I found an old black ledger buried in one of my mom's moving boxes. Yes, I still had some of her things in storage from years ago. I don't even know why I opened it. Just instinct, maybe. Inside, years of handwritten records. Every time I sent money to my mom, every check, every deposit, every emergency transfer, it was logged. Dates, amounts, even notes like $500 from my name. Said it's for groceries. Gave extra for Mason's court. $1, $200 for Julie's classes. She dropped them. $2,000, told him it was for rent, used for new washer/dryer. The ledger proves that I was not just helping. I was bankrolling the entire family for over a decade. I handed them over $86,000 in documented aid, and they still stole from me. We're submitting the ledger to the court as part of our civil suit to show pattern of financial exploitation. Small blue diamond, so where am I now? I bought a used truck. Nothing fancy, but it's reliable. Took a trip up to Maine last weekend. Just me, some good whiskey, and a silence I haven't known in years. I'm starting to feel free, not just from the betrayal, but from the illusion that I ever had a real family. I used to think I was building something they'd all be proud of. Turns out I was just stacking bricks so they could tear it down and sell it for scrap. Now, I'm building something else. For me, Julie's court date is in 2 months. We're pushing for full restitution, legal costs, and a formal injunction against her touching any asset tied to my name ever again. And yes, criminal charges are still pending. The DA has everything. They're slow, but they're building the case. I'll let you know when the hammer drops. As always, Reddit, thank you. I never expected to go viral. But your support, your messages, your anger on my behalf, has kept me going. This story isn't over. But next time, I'm not the one being written out. Update 3, 6 weeks later, court, chaos and karma. Hey again, Reddit. You know that feeling when the storm finally hits, and instead of running, you just watch it tear everything down? Not with fear, but with satisfaction? Because you've been standing in the rubble for months, and now it's finally someone else's turn? That was me this past week. The reckoning finally came. Let me walk you through the last few insane weeks. Small blue diamond, court day number 1. The show begins. Civil court. Full suit. I shaved for the first time in 2 weeks, walked in with my lawyer beside me, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt whole. Julie was there. She looked nothing like the sister I remembered. Puffy eyes, slouched posture. Her smugness? Gone. Her new husband, Justin, sat beside her like a scared lab rat. My mom was there too, stone-faced, wearing pearls like this was some church gathering. Mason didn't come. Word is, he's in another legal issue related to unpaid loans and car repo. Classic Mason. My lawyer opened with direct surgical destruction. She laid out a crystal-clear case of a limited power of attorney abuse, forgery of signature, backed by handwriting experts, fraudulent conveyance of real property, personal profit from undervalued sale, a historical financial exploitation of a military serviceman. The judge? A stone-cold woman in her late 50s, zero tolerance for BS. You could tell she was furious. She looked at Julie and said, and I quote, "I've seen con artists with more shame than what I'm seeing here. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was theft under the mask of family." We presented the family ledger, the texts, the sale deed, the timeline, and, get this, the Facebook messages from her ex, Eric, proving the baby's conception overlapped with the supposed marriage emergency. Julie's lawyer tried to paint it as a misguided family decision made under pressure. The judge stopped her mid-sentence. "Stop insulting my intelligence." I wanted to laugh. Instead, I watched Julie shrink into her seat like a balloon losing air. Small blue diamond, the bombshell, DNA, and divorce. Here's where it gets cinematic. A few days before the hearing, Julie's now husband, Justin, filed for separation. Why? Because Eric, her ex, filed a paternity claim. Yep, Eric wasn't bluffing. He was the father of Julie's baby. And apparently, Justin found out when he saw a Venmo payment from Julie to Eric labeled, "Thanks for keeping the secret." Like an idiot, she left it public. Justin lost his damn mind. He confronted her. She admitted everything. And instead of keeping quiet, Justin emailed my lawyer. He literally flipped on her. Turned over private messages, text convos, even voice notes of Julie laughing about how she tricked the soldier brother while he was gone. The court accepted the material as evidence. The judge's expression didn't change, but the tension in the room turned radioactive. It was clear, Julie didn't just steal. She orchestrated a multi-level betrayal. And now, the people she used were pulling the curtain back. Small blue diamond verdict and aftermath. The judge ruled in my favor. Completely. Not even a contest. Here's what was ordered. Full restitution of $106,000, the difference in house value. An additional $50,000 in punitive damages. Julie is barred from contacting me in any capacity without legal representation. The forged power of attorney is now being used as evidence in an ongoing criminal case for felony-level fraud. Oh, and that house? Turns out the buyer, Justin's friend, flipped it illegally without proper permits. And now he's under investigation. The house is in limbo and may be returned to the estate as part of civil damages. My lawyer says I may get the house back outright as part of the restitution deal. You couldn't script this better. Small blue diamond mom? Still delusional. After the verdict, my mother tried to corner me outside the courthouse. She said, "This is what you wanted, huh? To see your sister suffer. To tear this family apart. You've changed. The military made you cold." I stared at her for a long moment and replied, "No, Mom. The military taught me how to protect myself. You just never expected I'd learn to protect myself from you." And I walked away. That was the last time I saw her. Small blue diamond healing begins a new chapter. I'm still living in my small apartment for now, but I've got plans. If the house is restored to me, I'll probably sell it on my terms and use that money for something that matters to me. Maybe a cabin. Maybe a nonprofit for veterans who've faced financial abuse from family, which, by the way, is shockingly common. I've also started journaling. Therapy is still happening weekly, and I've begun rebuilding relationships with chosen family. Friends, fellow veterans, even distant cousins who quietly supported me through this. I'll never be the same, but maybe that's the point. Maybe I was never meant to go back to the version of me who thought loyalty meant sacrifice without limits. I've learned that blood doesn't mean bond. That the people who clap the loudest for you in public might be sharpening their knives in private. But I've also learned something else. Resilience is quiet, but it's stronger than betrayal will ever be. If the house comes back, I'll post an update. If Julie's criminal trial moves forward, you'll hear about it here. But for now, I'm taking a breath. And finally, I'm doing it on my terms. Thanks for riding this roller coaster with me, Reddit. I made it through the fire. And on the other side, I'm still standing. Final update. 6 months later, closure comes quietly. Hey Reddit. I wasn't sure if I'd write this. For a while, I thought maybe the silence was better. But after everything this community did for me, through the rage, heartbreak, and courtroom battles, you deserve to know how the final chapter closed. So here it is, the story of how my sister lost everything she stole, and how I, somehow, got it all back. Small Blue Diamond, the criminal trial, consequences hit. 3 months ago, Julie's criminal trial began. The charges were officially filed as a forgery of a legal document, fraudulent misrepresentation, theft by deception, tampering with a property title. All felonies in our state. Her lawyer tried to arrange a plea deal, but the DA wasn't having it. Not after reviewing the sheer malice and planning behind her actions. The court process was brutal. Eric, the baby's actual father, testified about Julie's manipulation. He admitted he knew she was married when they were together, but said she promised it was for show and temporary. He brought receipts, texts, emails, and one voice recording where she literally joked about harvesting the benefits of being a soldier's sister. Even Justin, her now ex-husband, testified. He told the court he was used, blindsided, and ultimately embarrassed to realize he signed documents in bad faith at Julie's request, believing it was just family paperwork. He's now facing separate charges for his role in the sale. Julie's defense tried to spin it into a mental health breakdown. She wept, claimed postpartum delusions, trauma, stress. But the judge, same one from my civil case, wasn't swayed. Her words, when sentencing came down, were unforgettable. You exploited your brother's trust, your family's sympathy, and this court's time. You treated honor like currency and loyalty like leverage. Now you'll pay. Julie was sentenced to 4 years in state prison, with eligibility for parole in 18 months. She also has a 10-year restitution order on top of the civil ruling. Any income she earns after release must legally go toward the remaining debt she owes me. Justice, finally, wasn't just poetic. It was written in ink. Small Blue Diamond, my mother, gone cold. After the criminal verdict, my mother moved to Florida to live with a distant cousin. She didn't reach out, didn't apologize, not even a voicemail. I think in her mind, I'm the villain who destroyed the family. But here's the truth. I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped bleeding for people who were sharpening the knives. Sometimes silence is more powerful than confrontation. I don't hate her anymore. I don't feel anything for her. That's the peace I earned. That's the peace she'll never know. Small Blue Diamond, the house. It came back. And yes, here's the part that still feels surreal. Because of the fraud ruling, the house sale was declared null and void. Since the buyer flipped it without permits and Julie lacked legal authority to sell it, the title reverted to me. I had the choice. Keep it, renovate it, or sell it clean. I chose the latter. I listed it properly, on my terms. This time I had full control. Sold it for $241,000. Paid off every legal bill. Donated $10,000 to a veterans legal aid foundation. Put the rest into a down payment for a log cabin in New Hampshire. Quiet, surrounded by trees, and just 2 hours from the ocean. It's everything my childhood home wasn't. Peaceful, mine, and untouchable. Small Blue Diamond and the baby? Before anyone asks, the baby is fine. Eric petitioned for custody and won. Julie's parental rights were temporarily revoked due to her incarceration. I've spoken to Eric a few times. He's changed. Maybe being pulled into this wreckage woke him up. He asked if I wanted to be part of the kid's life, as an uncle or something more. I told him honestly, if she grows up someday and asks who I am, tell her I was the man who finally stopped the cycle. And that'll be enough for me. Small Blue Diamond, what I learned. for anyone who needs it. I didn't think I'd come out of this stronger. But I did. Not in the chest-thumping, revenge-hungry way. In the quiet way. The kind of strength that comes when you realize loyalty has limits. Family can break you deeper than any enemy ever could. And most importantly, you are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to say no more, even if they're blood. Especially if they are. Small Blue Diamond signing off. This will be my last update. There's no sequel. No surprise twist. Just a man in a cabin, splitting firewood, with a dog at his feet and no more poison in his veins. To everyone who read my story, messaged me, screamed for me when I couldn't scream for myself, thank you. Reddit didn't just help me share my truth. You gave me back my voice. And now, I'm using it to tell someone else out there. If they used your kindness as a weapon, if they twisted your loyalty into shackles, you're not weak. You're just human. And it's never too late to take your life back. I did. And I'm free. Thank you for stepping into another tale with me. Every story unlocks a different world. And I'm glad you were here for the journey. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my stories Unchained, where every ending is just the beginning of another adventure. Until next time, keep your mind open and your heart ready for the next story, Unchained.